the AI side of that stuff is like, okay, cool. Like if we could unlock her time, imagine what she could get done is like pretty mind blowing. And I think that happens for now. The downside to it is, I think as a society, there's a lot of us that are pretty lazy that are going to, continue to do less with their time because they don't have to.
All right. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. Joey, how are you doing today?
I'm getting better.
The pause was like, here we go.
Gentlemen, Dan knows a little bit about this. I have been struggling with some perplexing health things for a couple of years, and recently paid out of pocket to see some specialists who did some simple blood work on me and were like, oh, you're low on this and this and this. It's just like, I went 2 years feeling this way and nobody thought, these 5 other specialists I saw maybe didn't think that was something to check on. Anyway, so
me and my wife recently started doing the bioidentical hormone replacement. She's had a history of like perplexing health stuff that when she turned 18, she was in the hospital for 10 days and they could not figure out what was wrong with her. And yeah, it ended up being this like long drawn out thing. But anyway, like continued through her life. And then we went and got tested for the bioidentical hormones, and I was like, oh, well, you're low on testosterone, so your hormone levels are all out of whack. And like she started doing like 80% of the stuff went away that was like crazy.
Yeah.
So,
and I haven't even talked about doing any of the hormone stuff yet, but just understanding what's going on.
Well, the problem
makes me not feel like a crazy person.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm sure your wife could say the same thing, that like she felt like a crazy person for a while and she just needed someone to acknowledge.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't even that. It was just like, why do I feel this way all the time? And then, it's like, it's so simple. It's simple stuff that just aggravates the crap out of you. And it's, it's one of those things where like, you don't know until you do it. And then you're like, oh man, this is what I've been missing this whole time. Like,
right.
And then for the hormone stuff, the problem they do is like, it's always based on averages of the population they're testing, right? So like men's testosterone average level right now is between 200 and 900. Our grandparents were between 700 and 1500. So what is really average? Should we be going off of this current situation where we have a bunch of low T dudes that are walking around thinking they're chicks, or should we go back to a time when like men were men and acted and felt that?
Have you done any research on that? Why it's dropped as much as it has in men?
They don't know exactly why, but it's kind of everything. Like everything is causing it. What they're thinking mostly is the microplastics. So like, we've gone to mostly like polyester shirts and underwear. It's like, probably shouldn't be wearing chemical, stuff. And our skin is the biggest organ in our body, right? And it soaks in everything. So, you wear underwear around your, genitals that like, that's not good. Like we should but it's also like the piping in our houses is all plastic, right? Which, and then food, obviously, like there's obviously something wrong with our food. So I think it's everything. And then the last would be like stress and stuff. I think that we are I think that's pretty clinically proven at this point. We're the most stressed out and anxious generation to ever exist. So, that obviously has a pretty bad impact. These things.
I think the irony of it all is that as we become more like technologically like focused on our devices and all these things which are supposed to make our lives easier, I think it's done 2 things. It's made us like more sedentary, right? We don't move around, and our jobs don't require moving around in the way that we used to. And it also disconnected us, right? So in a way, it connects us more. Like we can talk across Zoom right now, but at the same way, we're not in the same room together. It's not the same. It's different,
Yeah.
you know?
And we
So-
take it for granted. I was literally having this conversation last night with some good friends, and like it is absolutely like, I think we were created a very specific way to be in community with one another in close proximity, right? Like, it takes a village is not like a, metaphor for life. It's like, it takes a lot of people around you to do what you do every day. And, I think this connection is great in a lot of ways, but to your point, like I'm more connected to you down in Florida right now than I am to my neighbor that lives next door that I never talked to. Like, I need my neighbor more than I need, you know what I'm saying? Like over time, I think that's pretty proven that like we need to be in community. The other stat was like I think Facebook became mainstream in 2013, like when it became what it is, and like look at how we were mental health wise from 2013. It's just like maybe
what's interesting about that is that it's like I thought about that a lot in terms of like social media and kind of how it's affected our entire society and I don't even say society, I would say like civilization, right? So it's almost like it's as powerful as like say like a nuclear bomb, right? Like that would like change the way that we all operate, whatever. It's something like that, but it's more insidious because it's not one big explosion. It's like this chart. Like, well, how do you deal with that?
I think AI is going to be the explosion part. Like,
right.
I mean, there's going to be there's going to be sects of people that like never leave their house. They'll probably literally be catheterized and have a feeding tube so that they don't have to leave this different universe that's not real. Like,
do you all remember that Disney movie Wall-E? It's an animated movie.
Yes.
But the end of it, I remember watching it and thinking, what a lovely movie. And also, we're headed that direction. I 100% think we are headed that direction.
Yeah. I hope human nature takes it, like, the same conversation thought process. Like, people are waking up to this like lie that we've been sold, I believe. And then like I think COVID was the other one that like really opened our eyes to like, hey, this whole quarantine thing is like really doing numbers on like how I feel, and I need to be around people. And like I feel like we've had that like pendulum swing back to like, hey, let's be together. And
there was a whole generation of children who were socialized in a sequestered environment. You both have children. How do you feel it affected your children, mental health wise?
I think Dan and I both share a lot of the same beliefs and a lot of this, but my kids are homeschooled too. So, it's like we're a little, so my kids are with me every day. They're on the farm where we work. So they're here. They've been on the farm since COVID. So, or just after COVID, but it was, my daughter was going to be in kindergarten in COVID. So that's why we decided to homeschool, because we're like, well, we're not sending her, again, it was like, screen time is a big deal, and then let's put them in school and put them in front of a screen for 5.5 hours, and it's like,
right.
Michael's kids are both really cool because they're on the farm with their business, which also has however many employees that are coming and going. So the kids are like constantly running around, doing fun stuff, playing with the animals, interacting with the adults, coming in and out. Like it's a great environment to grow up in. And talk about like that's the homeschool advantage basically, is that you just like you're a normal person as a kid, and then you learn to operate like that, and like you're ready to go. So no, that's very accurate. So we got them a shed now where they're going to start selling eggs by the road up here. This is my daughter Sensabella's like business model plan, which is wonderful because dad pays for all the feed, it's a very high profit margin business. And you don't have any expenses. It's no cost of goods. No rent.
Business acumen seems to run in your blood.
I guess. So we were like, hey, what are you going to name this business of yours? And she came up with free range kids selling free range eggs.
That's cool.
Like that's pretty good. So, yeah.
Michael, so you and Joey haven't met before, I don't believe,
No,
right? So maybe give Joey just like a quick little, who are you? Like
okay.
where did you come from?
It's never quick, but I'll try my best. So I grew up. I was born and raised in a little town outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, called Fuquay. Most people can't pronounce it when they see it spelt. They usually call it Fuqua, or we've heard everything. Fuckway is another one that it constantly gets called. So Fuquay is a town I grew up in. It's a small agriculture town. Really kind of blew up through the 70s and 80s as a tobacco, major tobacco growing town. My parents moved here in the mid 80s from Wisconsin. My dad grew up on a dairy farm. And so always had some entrepreneurial aspirations. Didn't want to, be working on the farm and working for the man. Is he said he never wanted to carry a lunchbox to work. That was his motto. So he moved down here. From what I recall, it's just like one of those weird, like they were actually headed to Florida where my uncle had moved, and they stopped in North Carolina because my grandma was here. So they like stopped to visit and basically like never made it to Florida. So they just set up shop. My dad was an entrepreneur, so he started a sign shop where he was making like sandblasted mirror signs back in the early 90s, late 80s, and then had grown that into basically building entryways to subdivisions in the Raleigh area. So that was kind of his path from the early 90s through 2000s. I'm an only child. Grew up pretty spoiled, and I'd say I never had everything I wanted, but I never went without anything that I needed, right? So I had a lot of what I wanted as well. And the story kind of, I wasn't good in school. I think very like the entrepreneurial kid that's like, this place sucks. Like, I don't like your boxes. Don't tell me how I have to learn why, and I have to regurgitate this stuff. So I wasn't very good in school, and got around, the friend group, and ended up doing all this stupid, rebellious teenage stuff. And ended up in my early sophomore year, kind of was like, man, this is not for me. I was failing 10th grade already. So I was like, gonna not go to 11th grade. I was like, home one day. I was like, Mom, Dad, like, this isn't for me, man. I need to leave school, and like, I'll start working. And so that's basically, they were like, all right, if you're going to do this, you're going to, basically you're going to do it and make sure, you're getting all the responsibilities of it. So literally the next day I started working, and basically started a division of my dad's company that was doing metal fabrication work. So I was building like signs and mailboxes and street signs and fences, decorative ornamental iron work, basically, is what I was doing. And so I had like grown that enough to like hire people in, and then I moved into the other divisions of my dad's company at 16 years old. Literally from like not moved in, like worked, get a shovel and go do this now, So that was in 2007. So basically shortly after 2008 came, my dad got caught in the recession from the home builders and went bankrupt. So as basically like just turning 18, and like my life path was, hey, I'm going to go take over my dad's company one day. It was like, yeah, well, your dad doesn't have a company anymore. So what are you going to do now? So we quickly after that, my dad, the entrepreneurial spirit is so cool in this way, is like, well, what are we going to do? Because we're not going to get a job, so let's figure out the next thing, and it was quick. It was like, my dad had lost basically everything except for the childhood house that I grew up in during the bankruptcy. And it was just like, well, we're here. So, let's start, putting pen to paper and figure out what's next. And we wrote a 300-page business plan around solar energy, because we were like looking at the world. Was like, okay, well, what business can we be in that like never goes away? People need food and energy, and these basic needs, like let's be there. So we did the solar, and we got our first rounds of funding from some friends and family type stuff, and got this solar company started. And it was like the first time in my life, and I was 18, so we're like building this thing out, and we're like trying to be ultra conservative around it. And so at first we're like, okay, well, we can do houses, right? Let's figure out solar for houses. So let's take 1% of 1% of the population of North Carolina and get solar on that. And it was like $500 million. It was like, well, that's a big number. Like, how are we gonna do that? And then like as that kind of grew, it was like, all right, well, what if we got into like more of the commercial side of solar? So then we like the business plan kind of came into this whole new, and at the time there's all these like tax credits and stuff like that. So we had like created a financial model that it's basically like a rooftop lease for the cell phone tower guys. It was very similar, but on the solar side. So we like had this whole thing. And at the time, like we start to have conversations like Lowe's and all these big like hotel chains and stuff like that on how we could put solar on their stuff. And like Lowe's, we were within like striking distance of getting an LOI to put solar on like 150 stores in the Southeast. And this is like, now this is becoming like $1 billion range money we're talking. And it was just like, so obviously as a formative years, 18, 19, I'm like, this is very fun and cool. But then shortly after 2009, 2010 range, tax credits started getting rolled. And that was like super lucrative for the business model and the financial model to really work. So that ended up going south. And so we had to shut that down. And then now I'm like dating my wife now. At that time, so like we're pretty serious. I was very serious from the get go, but so she's going to college now, and like we're like we're moving in together and stuff like that. So like, well, I obviously need something. So I ended up going to work for a utility company for a few years, and just trying to make ends meet, and just was always like, my dad was still kind of walking this entrepreneurial journey, but like we were just not able to get anything really moving. So fast forward a little bit, and me and my wife got married, and then we had our daughter in 2014. And around that time, the land developers started kind of calling my dad again. It was like, hey, we're getting rolling again on land development. Are you guys going to get back in the business? Which he said, absolutely not.
Oh,
After you guys burned me as bad as you did, we want nothing more. But I was like, Dad, like this is something that I feel I have unfinished business. Like if I can run if you can help me get it going, I'll run it. I'll do everything. So got 3 equity investors to help us get started in 2015 in January. And I guess the rest is history, as they say. I basically started this thing we joke that everything was rented. We rented everything down to the shovel to get it going, because it was like, we're not going to put out any capital expense that we're tied to. So we started with a $50,000 line of credit. And just, it was, I look back and I don't even know how to tell the story accurately anymore. It's just like, I think the entrepreneur story, like we went through every hardship and, every moment where it was like, oh, well, this thing's done too. Like one of my business partners was like, we're shutting this thing down. Like we're starting to put too much money into it. We're not, making anything. So we had basically we were going to shut down the company in January of, I think 2017. And I remember being like, there's nothing I can do more than what I'm doing. And right before Christmas of 2016, I got like my first like big entryway subdivision, signed a contract, which was like $250,000. And so we signed that right before Christmas. And on January 1st, instead of shutting down, we were buying equipment to make sure we could do this job. And then it was just kind of like fuel to the fire from there. We then, shortly after that, so I guess from 2015 to 2017, I'd grown from basically that first year I did $100,000 in revenue. By 2017, I was doing like 2.5 million. So we grew like super fast, all by like sheer willpower. We weren't making any money. It was just turning a ton of dollars. And then we had our son in July of 2019, which was right after I bought my first company as an acquisition, was commercial landscape management. So we bought this small maintenance business that had been around for 30 years. So we bought that in June of 2019, had our son in July of 2019. And then my wife came to work with me for the first time. And I think it was like September, October range of 2019, which was like really the catalyst. Like I've been trying to get to work with my wife for a long time because I knew if we could work together, it would be very fun and, easy going and everything would be great.
Did she resist? Did she resist for some time?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was kind of one of those things after we had our son, she was working for a large company doing accounting, and it was literally going to be like she was going to work for free to send both of our kids to daycare. So it was like one of those things like, hey, look, you can come to work with me, bring the kids, we'll kind of figure things out at the office. And it just became like we had to do it. There was no other choice really. So that's kind of what happened. And then I saw like, this is where a lot of imposter syndrome stuff comes from, right? You get into I was way over my head. I was at this time I'm 25 years old, 26 years old. Don't know nothing really, like all the stuff that I think I know. But that is just a very tough time because like we bought this company and cash flow wise on the other side we're not doing great, but it's like floating the new acquisition as we're trying to get that all like under good management, and that one's not making money, so now they're both losing money. And like this is the times where it's like I'm calling my business partner like, dude, it's Wednesday, we need 30 grand for payroll, like now. Tough weeks, the 50 grand, and then we'd be good for 2 months, and then 2 months would be like, oh, we're done again. Like, just shut it down. We're dying. And this is kind of how me and Dan's paths crossed. Right in the end of 2019, I think we were on pace for like $3.5 million, and like we have no cash ever. Like scrounging for nickels every day, getting all this work, and we're hiring these people, and it's like, man, like everything on the outside looks like it's going so well, but inside we're just like, I don't know how we're not going to survive this. So I saw an Instagram post from a guy, and he was basically like, look, I hook people up with mentors, like I take you through this process, but it was really meant more for the people going from 0 to $1 million, like from 0 to their first $1 million. And obviously I'm like above that. So I call him, I'm like, dude, man, I'm, 3.5 million. Like I'm doing all this stuff. I'm hiring these people. I just did an acquisition, and I'm like telling him my margins that I like barely know because we're using books, and like pre Ashley, I lived out of a, trash bag and files, I'm like, I'll put this receipt in later, we're profitable till the end of the month for some reason. So I'm like talking to him and he's like, dude, you're fucked. I don't know how you're going to like survive. I was like, this is the worst thing you can tell me right now. I'm literally like about to cry on the phone. Like, damn it. I knew, like, I'm like way over my head. And he was like, but I know a guy, let me get you in touch with him. And here's Dan on the phone. I'm like, Dan, dude, I'm scared. Like, I think my first phone call was like, dude, I'm scared shitless, man. I don't know what we're going to do. And I start telling him the same things and I think that first meeting, I think we were actually like kind of showing some of the stuff we were doing and numbers. And he's like, you guys are, it's just a few things you guys start looking at, And I was like, thank God, like breath. Hey, we're going to be all right. We can do it. And then,
yeah.
And Dan was super gracious and just like made help, everything was just like, okay, if you need a call on Wednesday, like let's jump on a call. We'll walk through some of this stuff. He started talking to Ashley and was like, all right, let's get these things in line. Like, and it was just like little tweaks here and there that he just showed us, like, look at this, watch this,
Now, Dan, now that this is all in the past, would you say that it was just a few tweaks, or would you now admit this was bigger than we initially thought? And now that it's under control.
Shit show.
Yeah. On to see how long they could be like dinner for schmucks, basically. How long they could keep it going. That's how they made it.
Curious, was it just a few things, or was it like, no, there's actually a bunch to work on here?
No, it was, Michael's right. It was a few things to be aware of, and then integrate that being aware of it into their processes, which Michael and Ashley, the big component of it, getting that integrated was like the main thing. One of the things I can say that I was impressed with and continue to be impressed with Michael specifically, even on that first call, was, as you can tell on this call, he's a great leader. Michael is a much better leader than I am with stuff like this. And I don't know why, like, I can't do what Michael does, but Michael's the kind of person that when he starts talking to a group, either one-on-one or even a group of people, you just want to follow Michael. Like, you just want to go along. So because he had that, because that was there, like, the rest of it was just tweaks, like he said. Like, the rest of it was like things we had to pay attention to. And the point was, everybody in the organization, mostly everybody, was willing to get on board with that. And yeah,
I'm going to start short wiring here.
most everybody was willing to make those tweaks that had to be done. And then as we started to do those, Michael, I don't remember exactly. I mean, it's probably harder for you. It seemed like it moved along pretty well though. Like after, like once, like 6 months, a year, like as we kind of like, it felt like it was a mindset shift, I think. And once the mindset shift happened, it moved.
It was a lot. I believe more now than ever that like that old saying of like, people come into your life to get you through certain sections, right? Like, as much as we joke about those people, like we had some people that caused a lot of PTSD, but like, I don't think there was any better person at that time to help us get through that stuff, So it's like, yes, we had to fight but it helped us be, for where we were going. I'm not sure, man. It's like, I look back, and this is like one of those other things you joke about all the time. Is like, man, if I had to do it tomorrow, I'd start right back up and like, on the ground, I could get it going again. Then I start having these conversations. I was like, fuck, man, I don't know if I have it in me to go again, but that it's just, I don't know, man. I think our brains are very good at, blocking out certain pain and focusing on where you're wanting to go, so at the time it was just like sheer willpower. And at that time it was like survival, right? Like, we got to do this to survive. I think right around the time that me and Dan met, my dad was also diagnosed with cancer. And so he ended up passing away in 2020. And up until that point, like, he was my sounding board you know, and the person that I could at least kind of lean on for like what was going on. And, you know, so even when I met Dan, he got throat cancer. So he lost his voice and like couldn't talk, you know, so we used to be on the phone talking all the time, and it kind of like, he couldn't talk. So it was like, at most we were texting, which you just can't, you know, it's not the same. So it's like, again, same thing. Like, you know, my dad, I believe, was in my life to get me to this point. Like, he instilled a lot of this, like, where we connected the most was business. Well, I had a great relationship with my dad outside of that, but where we like, me and him were super tight when it came to like just this entrepreneurial, you know, visionary stuff. Like we were, I don't know, we both were in sync almost all the time. Until the operational stuff, you know, that's where we kind of butted heads, right? But we could both dream like super big dreams. So I think, again, so my dad was a part of my life and got me to this spot. And then like literally, I don't think the story could be any more like perfect of when Dan came into my life to help me, because Dan's absolutely been somebody I don't think anybody else could have got me to where I needed to be other than Dan through that time, you know? So it was like, just the way that stuff works is very interesting. And, you know, I think for entrepreneurs in general, like if you have to have a mentor at some point, which I really took for granted / like didn't really realize. Because I was just always the willpower, like I'm going to get through this one way or the other. The mentor part is just going to help you, you know, miss some pretty big gaps that, you know, are painful. So I think the mentorship is huge for that part. But yeah, I would say that I think that time as we made those tweaks, it went quick, I believe. And then really got going in the next couple years when we did another acquisition that Dan helped with. And then we also bought the farm here, which Dan is a partner and investor in as well. So we bought a wedding venue, farm, the whole thing. There was a mushroom farm as well that we had high hopes for that didn't end up making it. But
it didn't. It didn't make it.
I didn't make it.
Oh.
We not from lack of effort and stupidity, but
that's the entrepreneurial way, though, right?
We kept that thing going until it was we were beating a dead horse. Come on, keep running.
There's a book, I or maybe I feel like it's a book. It's called 6 Foot from Gold, I believe it's called, or you know that book, have you heard of it? And basically the concept is pretty simple. Like if you're down in a mine and you're like mining away, you don't really know how far away from the gold you are. You could be 6 feet, you could be 6 miles, like, right? And so
just go another 6 feet.
Yeah, but that's the challenge as an entrepreneur, is to know, because you do, you know, and I guess that's again a philosophical decision you have to make as an entrepreneur, which is like, you know, am I the 6 foot from gold guy, or am I the like, you know, I'm the 6 months from gold, and at 6 months I don't know where it is. I'm gonna like cut it off and move on to the next thing, or change the like process in some way. It's good to have those kind of, I think as we get older and we get more experienced as entrepreneurs, we ourselves start to put those guidelines on, you know.
I think it's the same thing as stages, right? Like I think your first entrepreneurial trip is like you're doing it for survival, and or like you have to, like you don't have another choice unless you want to go work for somebody, like in which case like is just against our DNA in a lot of ways. Like, you know, not that I'm above it, like I had a job because I had to, like I didn't have another choice at that time. So you know, it's like it just is something inside of us, like we got to do this to survive. And you know, I don't know, you just have that grit about you to make it happen. And then your next one, you don't need it to work, like, you know, you can survive without it. So that creates this, I think that's the mushroom farm, right? Like I as part of my joke before, it was like I'll start this thing from scratch. The mushroom farm was a great example of like I don't have it in me to do it again, because otherwise I would have made that into something super cool. But I couldn't. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the, I don't know. I think it's that willpower. Like I just didn't have the like, I'm going to go get this done, and I'm going to drag it along no matter what. anybody
Yeah.
says, you know, like
Yeah.
that's what you have to have.
You start to, I think a person, an entrepreneur who has experience, I think you start to get to the point where you understand the idea of opportunity cost, right? So sure, you could have dragged that along and maybe it would have turned into something, maybe it wouldn't have, or maybe it'll turn to some level. But there's a point where it's like you can only put your time and energy and money and effort so many things. Like it's like a truth of our reality that you need to make choices. And why don't we choose the things that are, at least this is the way I look at it, let's try to choose the things that are the easiest and produce the most upside.
Yeah.
Right? Like instead of doing the hard one. You know, like when you're younger as an entrepreneur, you do the hard one.
We had the joke for the mushroom farm was you know, Dan had this meme or sticker or whatever it was, like entrepreneurs, we do this not because it will be easy, but because we think it will be easy.
I love that. I love that.
Joey,
That was the mushroom farm.
you and I were talking right before about how being an actor, who I often attribute your business as an entrepreneurial venture, but it's a little different. How do you think that it's different from what you're, or the same from what you've heard in these conversations?
I think what I struggle with as an actor, as an artist, is that, and I know this isn't necessarily the case, but I feel like I have a lot less control over, you know, it's hard for me to say, well, I'm going to give up on this mushroom farm because it's not bringing me joy and it's not working. I need, so much of my job is someone else giving me the job, is trying to convince somebody to give me the job rather than making the job happen. Yeah, Dan, how would you guys, maybe I need to hire you, Dan. What should I tweak? How do I tweak this when so much of what I need? Okay, but now that I'm saying this out loud, so much of what Michael does is convincing people of, well, you need to hire me for, you know, so much of what you do, Dan, is you need to hire me and I'll help fix your, I get that. How would you say my job is different? Or do you think it's different? Do you think it's very similar? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all, you know,
we're all fucked. We're all fucked.
We're all fucked. I mean, 100%.
Oh, no.
There's something mentally wrong with every one of us that's like, oh, let's take this challenge. I'm the right man to fix that challenge.
Do this stupid thing.
I mean, I think we all have, entrepreneurs at some level are salespeople.
Yeah.
You know, I think I never wanted to admit that I was a sales guy because I was like, my dad was a sales guy, like through and through sales dude. And I remember being young and being like, even the way you answer the phone, Dad, you're like, you're a fake person of who you really are. You know, it's just like, he just turned it on and off so easily. But he was like, dude could sell just about any damn thing, you know, like he was so good. And I'm much more of like just the natural, like, I don't know. I've always felt like the more I think real I can be of who I am, the better of a salesperson I am. Right. So like, I was very much big on like, I didn't have the fluff. I was like, look, here's what it is. Like, you know, I am the man for the job because I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm not going to give you the thing that you want to hear. I'm going to tell you like, look, this is what we do. This is how we do it. It's a value to you. You know, if you want to value it that way, cool. If not, cool. Like, but I'm also going to be extremely persistent. Right. So I was always like, I told some of my customers in those early years, I was like, dude, you're either going to tell me to shut the hell up and not call you again, or you're going to tell me get to work. Like that's the two options. And shut the hell up really isn't going to work either. So you might as well tell me to get to work. Like just give me
getting to something really interesting, Michael, because I think perhaps you and I have shied away from calling ourselves salespeople because we don't feel like we're good at that aspect. I like to think of myself as I'm a collaborator and a creator, but you're absolutely right. What we're doing is selling things. Yeah. But what you're talking about is authenticity. You don't want to be the slick kind of salesman that we all have in our minds. You want to be your authentic self and say, hire this. This is what I offer.
Yeah.
And
if
I
you can add any value proposition to that, then it's a no-brainer, right? Like they're going to see that through. And I think especially, I'm not a creative mind. I'm like more of like the dreamer mind, right? So I see things in like 30,000 feet all the time, but like to ask me to like draw out with that path, I'm like, we're just going that way.
Fascinating.
I need the people behind me that are like, oh, I see what you're saying. Let me help you put all this stuff together. Like I think that's been my gift, is the ability to put people around me that like are very strong personality type people that I don't allow to like, I think some entrepreneurs can fall into that trap of like control freak stuff where like it has to come from them and they have to be the one involved. And like, that was also my dad. So I learned some of that stuff of like, Dad, you're the one really stifling the growth of this thing because you have to be involved in every little thing. That doesn't work, right? So saying all that to say, like, I'm not the creative type, but I would think in your world, like, you're creating this thing that is of value that you have to be authentically like, this is the best version of this thing and you need it. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
And I think as an actor, actors tend to like to think that, well, I can be all things. I can do all the things. But I think the key is figuring out what is my wheelhouse, what is the most authentic me, and put all my energy into that.
Yeah, and they can be two separate things, right? You can be your authentic, true self if you're selling this thing and allow your creative mind to create this other thing that's like completely out, or whatever, whatever the thing is that you need to create out of it. They can be two separate things.
Yeah. I think one of the things too, like in terms of like auditioning, for example, right? Auditioning, in like drawing a parallel with like kind of regular entrepreneurship, auditioning is like probably the most cold call-y type approach, right? Like if you're just going to an audition and you've been like, okay, cool, I got this audition, it's kind of a cold call. Maybe you don't know these people, or maybe they've heard about you, but it's like there's no connection there.
And I think most people go into that thinking they need to do what they want to see, right?
Exactly.
So you're not your authentic self. Like if you can go in there and be like, I know you thought you wanted this, but what you need is this. Like, and that stands out.
Yeah, and if that was the, like, look, we're kind of like business modeling this. If that was your shtick, like every audition that you went, like not you, but an actor in general, if they went to every audition, and people were like, that's the crazy lady who always does the crazy thing, and you're getting turned down. But what's happening is they're remembering, right? So now it's not a cold call anymore. Even if the actor walks in there and they're like, oh, here's this guy again, like doing something crazy, like it's like you're limiting you're limiting the, like, you're not just a number anymore. You're a personality, right? Like, so like I think in entrepreneurship, because we can change products and because we can change strategies probably a little more easily than like an actor can, because you are the product. It's always going to be in your body, right? Like your brain and your body is what they're going to see when you walk in. And so the way you change that, I think, is, I'm just talking off the top of my head as a business, would be like something like that. And maybe also on the back end side of things, like skip the auditions altogether and go more around like the, for lack of a better word, it's not what you know, who you know route. Like, how do you like play all of the political games? And because, I mean, in that business, that like then that's where you spend your time and your energy on that strategy. Like I can sit down right now and start picking up the phone call asking for investors to like invest in the fund. Is that the most efficient way? Probably not. Like there's much better ways for me to spend time. So like it's like figuring out how to like prioritize. And again, and I'm saying all this only in the context of that I think that creatives, artists, actors or otherwise are just entrepreneurs. Like I don't think there's really a difference.
Yeah.
That's not how we're trained. We're not trained to be entrepreneurs.
No. Yeah, I think a lot of what we just talked about, I think, remind me a little bit, and I don't know fully, Matthew McConaughey. I feel like that's a lot of his story, right? Like he came into those auditions like as a version of that character that he thought was above,
Right.
And I don't know, he's awesome, but
Yeah. I think too, like a lot of times with yeah, I think in entrepreneurship or even any kind of creative, I think entrepreneurship and creative endeavors are exactly the same in that I think you actually make more headway when you just say, screw it, this is the way I'm going because it's authentic to me. And then
yeah.
you kind of keep being authentic to you until the pieces fall into place.
That's 100% Matthew McConaughey. Like, he was the rom-com guy for so long. He was like, that's not who I want to be. Like, I didn't want to be the rom-com guy, but like, it paid a ton. He was like, he literally had to like exile himself out of Hollywood and say no to every rom-com. And he was like, it was hundreds. Like, I had hundreds of opportunities to get back in, to the point where people were like, well, I'll give you $10 million. And I think one of his like famous things was like, nope, that's not enough. And they were like, how about 15 million? He's like, oh, do I really mean what I'm saying here when, like turning down $15 million? Like, and he was like, I had to say no, man. Cause like, I wanted to come back as something, not the rom-com guy. But it took him like years of being like, fuck it. I'm not like, I have to reinvent myself by not being close to that thing because that's what you'll get drug into.
Yep. Yeah, people are attracted to people who are authentic to themselves.
Agreed.
And then going back to, I think we used the term imposter syndrome earlier. I think when you're in that imposter syndrome mode, you're probably in your head too much and you're not being authentic to yourself, right? Like you're thinking about
that. That's interesting. I've never thought of that before. You're too interested in thinking what they're thinking and not living. Interesting. I'd never thought of it that way.
You're not being authentic. You're worried.
Very critical of ourselves, right? So yeah, I think, and I also think there's just seasons of life, especially entrepreneurial seasons, is like you're just in over your head. So that you're in over your head. So therefore, you're just telling yourself like, dude, you do not belong in this room.
Question for both of you. I'd like to know your thoughts on, I'm sure there are many, many ways in which you feel technology is making life much easier and efficient for yourselves and for your business. I know in the acting community, it's a little scary. Like AI is quite scary for actors right now. Who knows whenever this podcast comes out, there was just an AI actress signed to a major agency, I think last week. And so I think technology scares us in that way. How is technology, is there ever a moment where you think, oh God, this is gonna mess some shit up for us?
I mean, I was in LA a couple weeks ago at a conference that me and Dan had gone to. And Jeff Collins was there, one of the famous producers for like reality TV. And he got to talking about the disruption that's happening in Hollywood because of AI. And he does a lot of like true crime stuff. He was like, so one of the biggest budgeting items for a true crime is doing filming the reenactments. He was like, it's all AI now, so like it went from this $1 million production thing to we can have that reenactment done in 3 days, computer. And then me and Dan share a buddy that does marketing, and he just sent me a video. It absolutely blew. He was like, this is 100% AI. I was like, no, it's not. Like 100% is not AI. And he was like, yeah, watch again. And like, I could see like little things, but without like paying attention to it, I was like, I thought it was a real production. Like it was absolutely mind blowing.
Those little things are going to be gone within a couple of years. You're not going to notice that anymore.
In months. I mean, like it's happening so quick. That's the only thing that's like a little nerve wracking. I feel like every disruption that we've had through our history has usually been over like a couple decades. AI is happening like 5-6 years, like, or 10 years at the most. Like it's going to happen so fast that like, that's the issue that I see is like, we're not going to have time to react to certain things. And then obviously like, some of the just wild, like we could be having this conversation, and it's going to feel like we're in the same room and it might not
Right.
actually be Dan. It might be somebody else that's like trying to imitate Dan. How are you going to know? How are you going to decipher truth in a time when it's already hard to decipher what is true or not? You know, like
Right.
not only is information moving so fast, but now it's going to sound like it's really Joey and Dan on the screen, and it's not. Like,
Yeah. My hope is I'm genuinely kind of thinking and working on this, is to have an AI Dan that looks like me and can answer questions and kind of like represent me, so that, like Maureen and I were just talking about this earlier, I have difficulty in my, if you want to call it leadership skills or whatever you want to say, in being, I'm Midwestern, right? So it's hard for me to be, unless I'm angry with you, it's very hard for me to be direct with you, right? Sometimes I wander around and, don't want to like be too direct because I don't want to hurt your feelings, but, because you're a nice person. So my AI Dan would be able to do that well. Like, right, to be clear without feeling like it's going to hurt somebody's feelings, because even if I'm saying, so anyway, my point is I could see things like that starting to develop, where people have like avatars of themselves that can do and represent them in ways that maybe they can't represent themselves, right? Like they actually become a surrogate of the person. So
But aren't we inching away from authenticity?
well, I don't know though. That's a good question. I don't. So the way that
Because maybe someone would want your approach of, well, I'm going to come around this instead of being super direct. Maybe that would be a better.
They might, and I think in certain circumstances that is justified. In other circumstances, I know the difference when I should be one way or the other, and I'm choosing, you need to get this version. This is your time. So yeah, they might prefer the other, but in some cases, I think they should get that one. But to your point about authenticity, I spoke on a AI panel on Wednesday of last week, and one of the questions that came up was that very thing. When you're using AI to interact for communication with other people, how does that change your authentic who you are? And my response to that was, like, when I use AI in my writing for school stuff, like, I'm not just going to the AI and saying, like, here, do my homework, because then that's not authentic at all, right? How I use AI is I tell AI what I'm trying to say, what I want to say, all the logic, all the thoughts, all my ideas, and then just have it basically structured for me. So it's 100% what I want to say with some, help from the AI structurally. So it's kind of like a really fancy word processor. So I kind of feel like it's the same thing when you start to have these more complicated interactions. If you're interacting with AI Dan, if I do it properly, it is me. It is saying exactly what I want it to say. It's representing me accurately and authentically. And it isn't just like, because the AI knows stuff from the internet, that this is why it's telling you this thing. That would be authentic.
I mean, I think we're gonna, like, for the high achieving, like, entrepreneurial type people, like, AI is gonna help us unlock a lot of time that we spend doing pretty menial shit, just because it has to get done. I think about that with Ashley a lot. Like, my wife, like, she is incredible and gets a lot of stuff done, but like, she holds herself to even higher standard. Like, she's not getting all the stuff done that she wants to get done. And it's like, well, that's because the stuff you have on your plate is like impossible for two humans. So like, but there's a lot of that stuff that's just menial tasks to just take time to like search through and get done, like gather information. Like, the AI side of that stuff is like, okay, cool. Like, if we could unlock her time, imagine what she could get done is like pretty mind blowing. And I think that happens for now. The downside to it is, I think as a society, there's a lot of us that are pretty lazy that are going to, continue to do less with their time because they don't have to. And that's the downside to, I think some people, might take it. I think you see it. The instant gratification stuff is going to get worse because of,
yeah, cool. What else as we round out our conversation? Michael, we haven't seen each other in real life in how long?
Well, shoot, I think it's from probably April our first quarterly, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have to we'll have to remedy that.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know, Michael's never been to New York. I think, do I remember hearing you say that?
Never been there.
What?
So maybe Michael and I should come to New York and visit Joey.
I think that's a great idea.
Game. Let's
I
do
think
it.
New York would blow your mind. Or you'd be like, ugh, I don't know how y'all live like this. What
I try to be super open-minded, but I tend to like I'm not much of a city guy. LA blew my mind. Like that place is pretty incredible. There's parts of it that I'm like absolutely why I don't like the city and some of the stuff it comes with.
Sure.
Pretty.
Maybe Michael and I'll do like our own little New York retreat, the two of us, and we'll go a couple days. That'd be fun, right?
That'd be cool.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm definitely game.
Cool. Thank you, buddy. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Such a pleasure, Michael. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
You as well.
Awesome.
Thank you,
All
guys.
right. Thanks, bud. See you later.
See ya.
There he is.
Lovely guy.
Michael
And
Bauman.
again, not at all what I thought. Not what I expected him to be.
You know what I'm finding interesting about that, because you've said that a couple times now. It's we should maybe try to like somehow merge the entrepreneurial folks with the creative folks who seem to be quote unquote at odds, but I don't think at all. Like I think the creative folks can really see themselves more as entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs can maybe see themselves as more creative than they.
I agree. That's a big thing I took away from this one is, no, I actually do have more control than I think I do. Oh yes, I am a salesperson.
Yep. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Oh, that was lovely.
Yeah. No, he's a good guy, and I will make an effort to get the two of us up to New York just to. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Great.
All right. Cool.